This is Gemara Pesachim Daf Ches, moving into the second week of Pesachim. Tonight, cheers, be a schus for Shleim of Chaim Pinchas ben Malki Yud Meir ben Yakira, and Manny ben Vega Chaim ben Sar Shalom Simon Riza Idol. Sorry, Baskin Andi Basim Chai Sar Yus Chaim Sar Rasi Yus Tol Ben Dwindle. There's a present Shavlei Shema Bas Naomi, but Shavfekim Shir Chana over Val David Nita Riva, Daniel ben Chana Rezol, Liva Bracha Bas Tavia Musa, Avram Tzvi ben Masha Esther B'Zei Shachali Yisrael, as well as Chosivuk for Atalea Bas Ito. We pick it up in the bottom of Zayin Amid Beis, the two dots, about 8 lines before the wide lines. Says the Gemara La'ar Aner, but the two dots. We're now back into the Mishnah, more of dinim of Bedikas Chametz. The Mishnah taught us what is the methodology, what do you use to illuminate the room when you're checking for Chametz. La'ar Aner, the light of the candle. Says the Gemara, Minahani Mili, from where do we know this? Amar Rav Chisda, says Rav Chisda. Lamanu, we learn it out from quite an elaborate limud. Lamanu mitzia me mitzia. The word mitzia from another pasuk mitzia. Mitzia me chipos. Mitzia from chipos. Chipos me chipos. Chipos me neiros. Neiros me ner. So it's no less than a 5-part limud. Mitzia, mitzia, mitzia. Chipos, 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 chipos. Ner, neiros, neiros, ner. The last step, everyone's already starting to realize neiros, ner, ner, neiros. Why do you need a double? The Gemara is going to discuss that. Says the Gemara, let's figure out what are these psukim. Mitzia me mitzia ksivach. It says over here by B'dikas Chametz Shivas Yamim. So arlei matziv b'teichem, you should not have leavened bread in your house for 7 days. Uksivasam, and it says, and of course the crucial word is over here yimatzeh, should not be found. And ksivasam, it says, coming up parsha soon. And they started searching with the oldest brother. This is when Yosef was searching through the brothers, their sacks to find the goblet. They found it in the Binyamin sack. Ubekata and Kala, and they finished with Binyamin, the smallest one. So we see the word Vayima. I'm sorry. And Vayimatze, and they found. Vayimatze, and they found the goblet in Binyamin's sack. So what do we see in this pasuk? We see the word Vayimatze, and as well we see the word of Vayichapes. They searched. So now we see Umesia mechipos, the day, and Mitzia from its own chipos, like we saw in the pasuk. But chipos mean neiros. So again, Mitzia, it shall be found in your property, is like it shall be, the goblet was found. In the same pasuk as finding this goblet, it says chipos searching. Now we say chipos. What does searching mean? Main neiros from candles. Let's say saying on this time, Achapis Yishlayim b'neiros. I'm going to search out Yishlayim with candles. You're going to search out Yishlayim with candles. So we see that the word chape, searching, is using conjunction with neiros, candles. V'neiros miner d'chsev ner lakim. Apologies, d'chsev, as it says, ner lakim Hashem nishmas adam. It says ner lakim is the soul of the person. Chayfeis kol chadri buttons. We see that the word chayfeis, as searching out, is used in conjunction with ner. So this 5-part drasha teaches us that we go all the way from Shivas Yamim. From Shivas Yamim Sarli Yamatzi V'Teichem, that Yamatzi now is showing us all the way Yamatzi Chibas Ner is Ner. So now, how do you do the Yamatzi? How do you do the Shivas Yamim? Don't have Chametz in your Rishos. You do it with a candle that the B'dikas Chametz has to be Ba'ar Ner. Says the Gemara in the second medium-sized line, under the Eri Shmuel. Leil Yodalad Boikin the Chametz Lar and Hair. You check with the light of the candle. Aval Bishin Rayel Davar. Even though we don't have an ironclad proof, Zich Davar. We have a remez, a hinge, an Emar. Shivas Yamim Sarli Matzei. It says 70 you shouldn't find. Vayimir Vayichabis because Lachel. Ubekated Kala, and they finish by the Kata, and the smallest one, and it says Vayimatzi. Vayimir Beisi Chabis Yishlayim Beniris after search with candles. Vayimir Ner Likim Hashem Nishus Adam Chayfeis. And again, just Yishmael is basically saying over the exact same limud. One important point is, what does it mean that Yishmael says it's not an ironclad proof, it's just a remez, it's just a hint. So Rashi over here points out, Rashi, the Rimatzal Zeichel David, 5 lines from the bottom, Rashi says that Smachta Ba'alma. Why? The Divrei Torah and Divrei Kabbalah and Inu, because we're learning out Divrei Torah and Divrei Kabbalah from Nevi'im. We know that whenever we're learning out from Nevi'im, it's never going to be 100%. It's not the same level as learning out from Torah itself. Says the Gemara, Ma'va Omer. What was the extra pasuk of Omer at the end? We said Chipos mean neiros, multiple candles, and neiros mean ner. Says the Gemara, and says Gemara, and if you're going to tell me, Hi Beisehi Kula, what it said in this line over here on the first wide medium-sized line, it said basically Chavis Yishlayim and Neiros. So at that time Hashem says, I'm going to search out Yishlayim with candles. Maybe you'll think that's a Kula. Who Dikam Rachmana? That what does it mean it's a Kula? That Hashem says, I'm not going to check out Yushalayim with a torch. The Nafish Nura Tuba that has a lot of light. Ela Ben Hura, but rather with a candle. The Sharga Zuta, which has a little bit of light. The Sharga Dizutar Neurat Disharga, Dizutar Neurat Tvei. What is that? What does this refer to? This refers to what's this checking of Hashem doing in Yerushalayim? Ta'avoin Rabba Mishtakach. This is going to be Hashem's going to look to Yerushalayim with what? A big torch, a big fire. What do you find with a big fire? You find big things, says the Gemara. You find that which is noticeable. You find the big Averis. But Hashem's not going to search with a little candle to find the small Averis. So this is a kula. So maybe the Gemara is suggesting now that we can't learn out from this pasuk. This is the leniency. Therefore, Tashma Nereshim Neshmas Adam. That's why we needed the second pasuk regarding the in there. Tan Rabban on the last line on Zayin of base. You're not do chametz with the light of the sun, nor the light of the moon, not with the light of a torch. But rather only with the light of a candle. And now, of course, the Gemara is going to go through where we learn out all these different dinim from. Says the Gemara, I'm sorry, let's continue. They are an air. Why? What's good about a candle? It's good for checking. And of course, the Gemara is going to have to explain why not the moon, why not the sun, and why is the candle good for checking. Says the Gemara, and even though we don't have an ironclad proof, this should hopefully sound familiar by now. We have a hint to the matter. For 7 days. And again, this is going to be the exact same lima that we keep on having. The second pasuk says, he started searching, and we know the pasuk ends off with the word vayimatze. The Gemara continues 4 lines down. Hashem's going to check Yerushalayim. So you see the word chapes, check, and then it says ben neiros with candles. And the last pasuk, in case that pasuk is not good enough. Why? Because maybe it's only lakula. Okay, so far we had 3 times a nice chazara. What is this 5-part elaborate limud? This 5-part elaborate limud again that begins with Shivas Yamim. So we have mitzia, mechibas mi chibas mi neiros and neiros mi ner. Maybe 4-part, 5-part, whatever it is. Says the Gemara, okay, great. You sold me. That's what it needs neiros. We learned it out. Ask the Gemara, let's go back to the Brisa. What did the Brisa say in the last line? You cannot search with the light of the sun, nor the light of the moon. Says the Gemara, what's this searching of light of the sun? If you're going to tell me because you're outside, that's why you can't search light of the sun. What do you mean? Rava says you don't have to search the chatzar at all. You know why? The ravens are there, and the ravens eat up any chametz left over. So you're not searching your chatzar at all. So what would it mean that you're not allowed to search it with the light of the sun? So meaning, we're looking for a case where you potentially can search with the light of the sun. Obviously, the Gemara thinks right now, you're sitting in a house, you have walls, you have a ceiling, you can't use the light of the sun. So Gemara thought maybe it meant the chatzar. The Gemara says it can't be. Says Gemara, Elabach Sadja must be a pavilion, an outdoor, like a roofed area. Says Gemara, 1 second. Amar Rava. Rava says, Rava says it's not true. If you have an outdoor enclosure, an outdoor open area, place that has light, sunlight, says Rava, you check with the sunlight. So what does the Brisa mean that you don't check with the light of the sun? Says the Gemara, a sunlight, a skylight in a room. A skylight in the room, so there's light coming through the skylight. You would think maybe you could do the b'dika with that light. Says the Gemara, no, you need a candle. Says Gemara, 1 second. Where in the room are you? If you're right under the skylight, that is the case of this pavilion. That is the case with this direct sunlight. Of course, you could check with it. Ella says Gemara, let's tell them you're to the side of the sunlight, and that's going to be the case. So when the Brisa said you're not allowed to check with the light of the sun, it's referring to a case of a skylight, not directly underneath, but more to the sides, because there the light is not good enough, and rather you need candle light. Moving right along, says the Gemara of Avukaloi, and similarly the Brisa said, you're not allowed to use the light of a torch. Rava says the Gemara, what do you mean? Rava said, what's the meaning of the pasuk? That the pasuk says, and the light's going to shine forth in the future. The light's going to be the rays are going to shine forth from his land, and from there there'll be this hidden light. So what do we see? Says the Gemara, learning out from this pasuk. What are the tzaddikim comparable in front of the Shechina? Like a candle in relation to an avuka, to a torch. Tzaddikim are a lot of light, they're a candle. But Hashem is a avuka, Hashem is a torch. So what do we see? Avuka is more light than candle. Ask the Gemara, why not let us search the light of a avuka, of a torch? And furthermore, Rava explains, avuka Avdallah mitzvah and amochar. We know that avuka, a torch, is the best for Avdallah, multi-wicks. So what do we see? We see that it gives off more light. By the way, this was the din that we referred back a few days ago when we spoke about Havara. We said that burning something, making a fire, shaloil tzarich is not mutter. We spoke at the case of a Havdalah case. The reason is because it's mitzvah min ha-muvchar. You can be yoytze Havdalah without a multi with candle. But anyways, back to our Gemara. Says the Gemara that the Havuka, this torch, is more light, so why can't you use it for B'dikas Chametz? First teretz. Says Rav Nachman Yitzchak, you know why? We're going to four tzirutzim. The reason is because a candle, you can bring it to the corners, you can bring it to the crevices, you can search well with it. A big torch, you can't bring it to the cracks and crevices. Teretz number one. Teretz number two, Rav Zid Amar, a candle gives off light in front of it, but a torch gives off light behind it. And again, I'm sure in science, all these things make sense. Rav Papa Amar, Rav Papa comes along and he says, hi, boys, I like boys. When you have a candle, you're not afraid. A little candle, what's going to happen? You walk around this massive torch, you're afraid it's going to start burning down the house. Therefore, you're going to be concerned with something else, and you're not going to be able to do a good bedika. And lastly, the fourth teretz says, Ravina Amar, hay mashach nura, v'hay miktav iktufi. A candle is a steady, consistent light. A torch is a flickering light, and therefore it doesn't give, it's not easy to check. And the common thread over here is, yes, a torch does give off perhaps more light. But over here by the Bedika, we're not necessarily looking for more light. We're looking for a precise light, a steady light, a light that could go into corners, a light that you're not going to be afraid of, all for the purpose that you're able to check without worrying about anything else, go into all the cracks and crevices, and look everywhere for the chametz. And therefore, that's what we learned. Bedikas chametz, light of a candle. We have the elaborate limud of matzah, chipas, neira is there. And now the Gemara explained you can't use sunlight, can't use moonlight, and you have to use the light of a candle. Says the Gemara to that. We're holding about 15 lines down. Any place that you don't bring in chametz, then what is the halacha? You do not have to check that place. Says the Gemara, kol makam la'asuyim, what's it come to include? La'asuyim, other than Rabbanim, is come to include that which we learned. The high up holes and the down low holes, those are holes that normally you don't bring chametz in, and therefore you don't have to check them. Vegaga atziyah on the roof of the annex, vegaga migdal on the roof of the tower, verefes bakar, and the cattle barn, the lulin and the chicken coop to umiteven. And the straw storage areas, v'itzoy siyayin, the storage of wine, v'itzoy shemen, the storage of oil, ein tzrichen bedika. So the Mishnah said, anywhere you bring in chametz, you have to check. Meaning, anywhere you don't bring in the chametz, you don't have to check. It's coming to include all these areas, top holes, bottom holes, roofs of certain areas that you don't generally bring in chametz. If you have a bed that they place between two rooms to divide two rooms, but this type of bed it was a high bed, so there's a room underneath him of sekes, sricha bedika, that bed, you have to check because you have all the area under the bed, and it's a wonderful storage area, and they used to put things underneath it. Says the Gemara, let's figure out what we just said. Veramino will ask you a stira. If you have a hole between you and a friend's house, and you have a wall between you and there's a hole in the wall, what's halacha? Each side of the wall, there's a wall in the middle. This person has to go in as far as he can reach. This person has to go in as far as he can reach. And each one has to check in the hole. And everything else you do betel. So obviously we see question one. We see that the churim, we see that the holes doesn't differentiate. You always have to check them. Continues the rice on the first line of Shimon Gamliel says, if you have a bed that separates within your house, so during and you have wooden stones that are organized underneath it, and there's the area underneath, you don't need a bedika. So obviously we see a two-part question. Kasha mita for the answer of Shimon Gamliel, where in this price he says you don't have to check, and our price says you have to check. Kasha churin achurin. Answers the Gemara, churin achurin lo kasha. Why? When does it say you don't have to check is the top holes, the bottom holes? When does it say you have to check is the middle holes between the two houses? One is where there's a high bed and therefore there's room underneath. Where it's a low bed and therefore there's no real room to put stuff underneath it. Therefore, you don't have to check it. Says the Gemara further 4 lines down. Wine storage don't have to check. But Tanya learned in a race. Ask the Gemara. You have to check. Answers the Gemara. Where you use the wine during the meal, and therefore that's the reason why you have to check it. Says the Gemara, I don't understand. If you're talking about a storage area, which you go during the meal, or the servant, the shamish, the waiter goes during the meal, so there should be no difference in wine and oil. Answers the Gemara, a fundamental idea. Shaman yesh kavala achila. You know how much oil everyone's going to need during the meal, so you don't really go down to the oil area during the meal. But yayin, wine, ain't kavala. There's no amount that is fixed for drinking. Therefore, you never know. And of course, this is really bisman chazal. The wine was the drink they drank. It's like saying there's no set amount of Coke that one could drink. Of course not. 1 bottle, 2 bottle, 3 bottle. You never know how much one's going to drink. Certainly, so too with wine back then. And that's why the wine storage, yes, needed a bedika. Continuing in the Gemara, Tanya Rav Chia. Asu aitzri sheichar be'Bavel koitzes yain be'Eretz Yisrael. The storehouses of beer in Babel were like the storehouses of wine in Eretz Yisrael. Because they used to use the beer storehouses. Therefore, you have to check them on Pesach. The house of fish does not need to be checked. The big ones or the small ones. And Rashi says the big ones of Baravi ain't tzrich v'dika sheish lahem keva, because it's a fit amount how much you eat, and you could figure that out. The small ones ain't lahem keva v'ayim yitzarach lamed ulahavi, and therefore you might always need to bring some more. Back into the Gemara, Amar Rav Chuna bei milchi ubei kiri tzricha v'dika. The house of salt and the house of wax, you yes need to check. Amar Papa, Beit Tzivi, again, more rooms over here, the fig room, and Beit Tamri, and the date room, Sarach Madika. Again, we don't necessarily have the same type of room, but we always have to take out the Yesod. The basic idea is rooms that you go in with food. Tanim learned in the Mishnah. Says the Gemara, you do not have to put your hands into holes to check it. Livdok, you know why? And they ask like, you're going to stick your hand in, you don't know what's going to come out. Says the Gemara, what do you mean? What are you so scared about? Might put your hand in the hole. If you're going to tell me there's going to be a scorpion, I don't understand. Talk about a hole that they use, they store stuff in. How do you store stuff in there? What about the scorpions? Says Gemara, that it fell. If the wall fell, don't believe it. Why do you need to check it at all? It's a fallen wall. But that a wall falls on top of bread, or if it's destroyed. Answers the Gemara fundamental. Over there, the wall fell on top of it, and you can't dig it up. The dog could get in, and this is one of the ideas that we'll always see, that it's a lot of things are dependent. Could a dog actually go and eat it? So too over here, therefore you're going to have to, check it. Okay, so that's basically the end of the precise dinim of bedika of this hole. But now the Gemara is a side issue. We know you do a mitzvah, you're not going to get harmed. So you're doing bedika's chametz, you stick your hand in the hole. Why are we afraid of scorpions? You know why? Because maybe you're missing your needle. And therefore, when you go search in the hole for the chametz, you might go search for your needle, which isn't a mitzvah. That's how you're going to get harmed. Just to put it into conventional, practical, nowadays terms, just a picture, it's like a drawer. You open this long drawer, let's say behind the couch. You go look behind the couch for chametz. And while you're behind it, like, wait, remember that phone I dropped? Remember that money I dropped? Remember that anything I dropped? So you go look for it. That's not a mitzvah to find those things. So that's what we're afraid you're going to get harmed. Says the Gemara, really? Because that's not a mitzvah? Someone says this money is for stuck with so my son will die, someone will live. Or so I should go straight to Olam Haba. What is that law if you give stuck on such a Tanai? Harizah Tzadi Gamar. You are a Tzadi Gamar. So what do we see? Look at the top Rashi. Top Rashi says, we don't say you're not doing it for the right reason. You're giving tzedakah also for yourself. So what's the question? Our case also. Why are we assuming while you're checking for chametz, you're going to look for your whatever you dropped back there? You're doing a mitzvah, so that's what you should be done with. So why are we saying that we're afraid you're going to go do something else, you can get harmed? Answers the Gemara, no. Maybe after you find your chametz, then, or you're not chametz, then you're going to go look for something else, and you're no longer doing the mitzvah. So all the first understanding that the concern of this hole is that there might be some scorpions, some akribim, hiding in the hole. Says the Gemara 2 lines down, a second understanding. We're afraid of Goyim. Goyim are going to see you searching through the hole. They're going to think you're pulling some witchcraft business on you, and they're going to come and kill you. Uplima, and it's the plima is the name of a person. Let's see the Tani went to the Bryce. You have a hole between a Jew and a Goy. You check until the place your hand could reach. And the remaining area, you just mavatl. That is what the Tanakama holds. Plimai Omer, Plimai says, Kol Atzmai Einai Baidei, don't check the hole. Mibnei Asakana, because we're afraid. Says the Gemara, my Sakana, what is the concern? Name is Sakana's Kshafim. We're afraid that the Gaim are going to think you're doing witchcraft. What do you mean? Anytime you go put something in that hole, why are we afraid the Gaim are going to think you're doing witchcraft, sticking your hands in holes? Answers the Gemara, Hasam, in a normal case, Kiyishtamish, Yamama. When do you look at it? It's during the day. Unuhura. And it's light outside, so guys don't think that's not a normal time to do witchcraft. Halcha, what's going on over here? It looks a little suspicious. It's Laila, it's the middle of the night, Vishragu, and you got your candle. They see you walking around with a little candle in the middle of the night, and you go over the hole and you stick your hand in, and guys are going to think you're going for witchcraft. Therefore, it's a sakana. Therefore, it says, "Please, don't do it." And that's why in our brisa, when it says you don't have to check in the hole because of the sakana, it's because this sakana of witchcraft. Now the Gemara has the same question. Says the Gemara, fundamental answer. Don't say, I'm doing a mitzvah, God. Don't harm me and run in the middle of the street. If it's shchiach hazekah, if it's common, that's a different case. Remember the pasuk says, "Vayomer Shmuel, how am I going to go? V'Shem Shal Yavargeni, Shama Shal Yavargeni, Shal's going to hear and kill me." Vayomer, and he said, Hashem Uglas Bakar Tiav Yadcha V'Gomer. And this was a command. Shmuel was being told by Hashem to go up, and he still was concerned. You're still concerned? Hashem told you to go up to do the biggest mitzvah. The answer is because it's a common case. It's a common as it gets. We know what's going to happen in such a case. You're not going to put yourself in a place of harm. Says the Gemara, Ba'imine Meiraf. Hanu b'nei Meiraf. Did Dairi be Bago? They live in the valley. Mahu, what is the halacha with them? Lemeise kadma v'chashuche lebeiraf. What's the halacha about mazikin? They live in a valley. They got to leave their house early in the morning. They come back home late at night. Should they be concerned? Amr lahu, Rav responded, Nesi alive al tavari. Let them come on my neck. Don't worry, I'm not worried. V'nezel, let them come. Says Gemara, my Amr lahu. What's the reason? Lo yadana. We don't know why Rav was I'm sorry, I read it incorrect. One more time. Nesi alive al tavari. He said, let them come on my neck. So now the Gemara is in Nizal Mai. What about them going home? Amarlu Layadana? I don't know. Okay, so Rav said they could come because they're coming to yeshiva. I'm not worried. Says the Gemara in the second line, Itmar. Amar Rav Lav Shuchem Mitzayinu Nizakin Loy Vali Chasan. Come on, who's this for? And neither when they come back home. Who does this go according to? The Tani Easy Ben Yehuda Omer. Kilafisha Amra Taira. Because the Torah says, "Lo yachlin ishes artzacha." Melami, what does this teach us? That your animal could be in the pasture, vein chayim azikasa, and an animal's not going to attack it. Your tarnagol, your chicken could go pecking away the garbage. Vein choldam azikasa, and the weasel is not going to harm it. Says the Gemara, it's normal for them to get hurt. Yet that they're not going to get hurt. And this is because they're going to do a mitzvah. So they're going up to Eiler Regel. And we see you don't have to be concerned that you leave your animals behind, someone's going to attack them. So to us, you're doing a mitzvah, you don't have to be concerned that something is going to harm you. Says the Gemara, that's only when you're going to the mitzvah. Fine, we see a right, they're going up to Eiler Regel, they don't have to be concerned about their animals. What about they're coming back home? Go back to your tents. You can go back home and you find your tents in peace. And therefore, we see on the way back home, you also don't have to be concerned. Says Gemara, now we flip the tables. What? You can even come back home from the mitzvah? Of course you could go to the mitzvah. That's the most bashing thing in the world. So why do we need a different pasuk? Says Gemara, Kol Adam Shesh Karka. Oil regel, shein lo karka, ein oil regel. Meaning that brisa that we saw about those chickens, about those animals, the brisa right over here, not teaching me that you're not going to get a harm when you do a mitzvah. No, that brisa was teaching me a different din. The din of Ravami that was you only chayiv in oil regel. You only have to go up on the shalosh regalim if you own land. Says the Gemara, when they ma'in peiris ginois Yerushalayim, once were the phenom of the regal. Why aren't the ginoiser fruits, the most luscious, wonderful fruits in the world? Why don't they exist in Yerushalayim? Yerushalayim is the best place in the world to have the best fruit. Says the Gemara, you know why? We don't want people when they come up Oile Regal to say, we don't want people to say, if we just came for these wonderful fruits, that would have been enough. Nim says, we see why they're coming up. It's not for the right intentions. We want them to come up to go to the Beis HaMikdash. So Hashem purposely doesn't put the best fruits there so that people don't have the wrong intentions. Similarly, the wonderful hot springs are in Tiberia. Why are they in Tiberia? Come here to Yerushalayim. You know why? We don't want people to say, if we only came up to bathe in these hot springs, it would have been enough. Name says Aliyah Shlishma, they would have come up for the wrong reasons. Says the Gemara back into the Mishnah. That was that interesting middle line of the Mishnah. The Mishnah said, and with what do they say two rows? Cliffhanger, middle of nowhere. Says the Gemara, Martiv. Who mentioned Martiv? Who mentioned the winery that you're saying? And where do they say those two rows in the winery? Who's talking about a winery? And this is how we explained the Mishnah back then in the Daf base. The Mishnah said, if there's a place you don't bring the chametz, you don't have to do a bedika. Oil and wine storage areas do not need a bedika. Why? Because you don't generally bring the chametz. And now we continue. When do we say that you're going to have to yash check them? When you actually do bring in chametz, and as well you use it during the meal. Now we conclude the Mishnah. With this, we're going to conclude today's shir. Beishami says you have to check two rows. Amar Rav Yehuda, what are these two rows? We'll have some nice pictures in a moment. Amar Rav Yehuda, shtei shuros amru mina aretz v'shemei kaira, from the floor to the ceiling. Rav Yochanan Amar shura achas kimin gam, one row like a gam, the Greek letter gimel, like an L. Again, we're going to show the picture of these two shitas in a moment. Let's just read the brisa. Tani kavaz Rav Yehuda, Tani kavaz Rav Yochanan, Rayos, Tani kavaz Rav Yehuda. Why? The brisa says, B'shami amrim shei shuras al b'nei kol amartiv, v'shtei shuras amru min haaretz v'shemei kaira. Just like Rav Yehuda explained, that B'shami's opinion is from the floor to the ceiling. Tani kavaz Rav Yochanan, that was shei shuras al b'nei kol amartiv. Chitzoyna royas haPesach, the outer one sees the door. V'alyoyna royas haKaira, and the top one sees the roof. There's no bedika at all. We'll see that in a moment. So this is the first opinion, as you see in front of you. You see the two rows. Now it gives you a little more of a picture. We see the two rows all the way to the ceiling. Here's another picture. You see the doors on the right, and you see the two rows of barrels all the way to the ceiling. This is the next opinion. This one we said Kimin Gam. You see like the Greek letter of L, that's the first row and up, the top. And this is as well the Greek letter of Gam of L. Gimel. Says the Gemara Beis Hillel, Aimrim Shtei, Shuras Achitzim Shel Yonis. Now let's figure out what's the opinion of Beis Hillel. Amar Rav, says Rav El Yoino, B'Shalamata Imanu. Know what it means? That which is on top, that which is below it. Shmuel Amar, El Yoina, B'Shalaf Imanu. And the one that's behind it. My time of the Rab, what's the reason of Rab? Daik Chitzainis. He learned from the word Chitzainis. Well, actually, before we go into that, here you see the opinion of Rav. Here you see the top two rows, like Rav says. And here you see another picture of those wonderful top two rows. And here you see the opinion of Shmuel. Then you see not the top two front rows, but the top two behind it. And here is the same picture. Now let's conclude with understanding where they got this from. Says the Gemara, my time, the Rav, Daik B'chitzainis. He says the Gemara, He says top ones. The ones underneath it. Shmuel Amar El Yoina, B'Shalav Nimei Menu, the top row and the one behind it, right? Shmuel was the one behind it. My time of Daik El Yoinis. He was a Daik the word El Yoinis. He says the outermost. It comes to exclude the innermost ones. Rav Chia Tani Kavasei the Rav, Ekulu Tanoi, Tani Kavasei the Shmuel, the Hill Chazak Kavasei the Shmuel. We pass like Shmuel, although some don't have this gear, some we don't pass like Shmuel. Have a fabulous day and a wonderful week.